Mark Hogue, and I call the meeting of the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Board to order. We do have a quorum present. The first thing that we take up, if you're here to speak on an item that is on the agenda, if you'll please wait until that agenda item is called for any public comment. But if you have something that you want to address to the board that is not on the agenda, now is the time that we take public comment on any items that are not on our regular agenda. Is there any other public comment on any other topics? Seeing no one approach, we'll move on to item number 3, consideration of approving the minutes from the March 28, 2023 TIRZ Board meeting. I believe those were emailed around to everyone. Has everyone had a chance to look at those, or you should have a copy with you? Has anyone seen any changes or corrections to those minutes? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Gaylor. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Second, Mr. Fernandez. Is there any other discussion on the minutes? Does anyone need a few more minutes to go over them to make sure? All right. Call for the vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the financial report.
Thank you. John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. You've seen this before, so I won't go in detail, but basically this outlines, summarizes where we are for the year, starting with our beginning balance of just under $600,000, and then it identifies our projected revenues as well as already committed expenditures, leaving a total available of about $138,000. That'll come in to play a little bit later in the meeting when you're looking at projects. I think this time we may have more projects asking for money than we have funds available, so part of that discussion will involve how to split those up. Just not to get too far ahead of myself, but in the past this board has taken a few different approaches. In some cases they've tried to fund all eligible projects and given them a portion of what they asked for. In other years you all have selected the top projects and funded those and then not funded others. So it's really at your discretion how you want to do that.
Question.
Yep.
How often are interest disbursements made to the fund? I know you've got your money invested in lump sum categories with different other groups, but how often does the finance department disperse the interest earned on y'all's money?
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer. Typically, that's kept in their accounts, and it's basically reported on an annual basis. And so it's a little tricky because...
But your money is invested in 30, 60, 90-day type stuff, and I don't know what it is. And I've asked this before, and I'd like to know sometime if you get us an answer, when you receive interest payments from your investments. So that will help us in some of this that's going on today and tomorrow and the next time.
Yeah, I can definitely look into that. I will say, to some extent, the way the city does this is all of the money goes into one big pot.
Right.
Accounting-wise, this is all attributable to the TIRZ fund, but it's really in one big pot. So I think the short answer is whenever we would need it, it would be available, whatever currently accrued interest is.
I would like for you to find out how often and how your money is invested, number one, whether it's in 30, 60, or 90 days, and when you could expect, or we could expect any kind of disbursement on a quarterly, annual, or whatever basis they have to do it, monthly, or whatever, okay?
Okay, I can definitely get an answer to that.
Thank you.
And then these are the same numbers for the north, starting with about $2.5 million, and then ending currently available of just under $1.5 million that is available for north projects. As is typical, we do have a couple of north project requests, but nowhere near the funding available. I think we've discussed a few times, we are still looking into potential projects sidewalk projects. Street lighting is something the north area has been asking about, and so we're looking at possible street lighting projects on Chadburn or MLK. But at this point, there's nothing to move forward for your approval, but we are working with city engineering and other departments at possibly putting together some projects to move forward. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any other questions on the financial report? All right, that does not require a motion.
That's correct.
To item number 5, consideration and possible action on TIRZ incentive program applications, first in the north and then in the south.
Good afternoon, Board. As you can see in front of you with our agenda, we had 2. We have delayed the nonprofit till next month. We need more members to make that vote, so we have postponed it until we do so.
Okay.
So today we'll be looking at 1718 North Bryant. They are requesting $800. They are going to demo and disposal for their project that has been ongoing. Now, this project actually has been eligible for many more items than what they're asking for. They have done a lot of work, and let's just get to it. This is what they're looking to get rid of. They are going to, if you look on that actual, right here, this building in the background is all the stuff that they would have loved to apply for, but had to persist with their project, had to keep going, developed it, and it looks great. Now, for their project to now proceed, they are looking to take care of the buildings in the front, getting that taken care of. So what they basically have, as you can see, they have this nice, beautiful building in the back, and they want to ask for funding to take care of the front, straighten things up, and also make it look very nice as far as on that main street. Of course, if you do have questions, the applicants are here to discuss it as well. This being the only project we have for the north, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Have any questions?
Do you have an estimated value of the facility when it's complete?
The appraisal came in at 1.2 million. The building.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
could you come up to the,
microphone.
this is being televised, so we need to.
The building back there, the appraisal came in around 500 for the building, right at 500 for the West 18, the 18th Street building. I believe the car lot in the building up front there is like 280. The appraisal we got with the completed project is like 1.1, it's over 1.1, so it's increasing quite a bit. We're taking the old ugly building built in the 60s right there with all those wires and everything. It's got concrete this much around it where water keeps coming into it. We can't get all the holes plugged, but anyway, so all that'll come down. All that building will come down, and then that big building in the back will be Bryant frontage whenever that's completed. And we're squaring the front up there. We put the 15-foot porch on it. I have some pictures of it. I can show y'all what we've already done to the back there that shows where it's at now. It has a 15-foot porch and awning on the front of it, and they've already started squaring the front of it. It'll all be stucco, the front of it will, and the glass and everything. But I'd be happy to show y'all a picture of that if y'all need it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mr. Brown.
Second.
Second by Mr. Newland. Is there any further discussion from the board or any additional public comment on this topic? All right. No other public comment, no other discussion. We'll call for the vote. All those in favor of approving the grant for 1718 North Bryant as requested, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. And the motion carries. And we'll move on to the South Zone. Brian?
All right. Like Mr. James said, we have 3 great projects, all requesting the full amount of $75,000. Of course, like he said, totally up to your discretion, but they are all 3 great projects for your consideration. First is
And Brian, if I could interject, if you go back real quick, the funding available is different there. when we originally looked at this, we got an updated financial report, so the numbers from the financial report that you saw earlier are more up to date than that, so.
So we'll be
We're
looking at
actually
138, 822, as far as what we're.
There's enough funds to fund all of them if we were to approve.
No, we have
No.
138, and there's 3 projects, each
Okay.
asking for
Okay,
75,000.
all right.
So
I just saw the, funding available, 109.
yeah.
Well, I'm just looking at the slide. Yeah, yep.
So first, we'll go with 325 West First Street, paving, facade, landscaping, paving, and development fees. This is going to be a to-go tea store. They are developing a plot of land right there between the Walgreens. I'll tell you what, if you drive down this street, you see that vacant, like, parking lot every time you pass it. And their vision is to make a nice little restaurant, well, not restaurant, I'm sorry, a to-go for tea and energy. They have a couple of parking spots, but they're going to develop that little plot of land to make it pretty smooth. And this has been an ongoing project for more than, I would say, over a year. So they're just seeking help to finalize anything they can to help develop. They also provided you guys with a little statement that because they couldn't be here, just a little bit of background to let you know what they were wanting and hoping for. Next, we have 213 North Chadbourne. The applicants are here to answer any questions, but they'll be doing facade, landscaping, historic preservation, outdoor storage. So this building, you can't miss it. I pass this building every day I come to work. This one has a sad story, and they're trying to get help with it. I've spoken to them a couple of times as far as what they can do and hopefully what we can help with. Once again, this will look beautiful once it's taken care of, once it's finalized. They have a great vision of what they would like to do with this building with the double doors and the glass. It's going to look great. Of course, depending on where we go with, totally up to y'all. Next, we have 5 West Concho. Kind of has a similar story: facade, landscaping, fire, sprinkler, monitor, and smoke alarm system. Boarded up, kind of has the same deal going. The applicants are not here to answer questions, but once again, when they finalize and finish, it's going to look great. They got the brick, and they put the glass back in their front door and specs. It's in nice coloring. So as you can see, they go from, I would say, boarded up windows, boarded up glass, to a nice glass, brick, lights on the outside. But at this time, would y'all have any questions for the applicants that are here or for myself?
Okay,
I will say, if we divide it into 3, each of them are going to get it lower 46,000.
Yep. I think the real question is, what do we do with the limited funds available? I mean, unless anybody has any specific questions on one of those specific projects, we can take those up now, and then we can discuss what we want to do. But is there any questions about any of these projects?
Just to confirm, the 138 is the availability, correct?
Yes.
That's right.
Okay, not the 109.
No, sir, no, sir.
That's not a
Let's-
total. That's not-
If you like, I can go back to the 138, so it's in everybody's mind, or I can stay on any of the pictures, whatever you guys need.
Yeah.
But yeah, just 138 and however y'all would like to distribute it. If the applicants,
What's the First Street, what are they using the money for?
That tea store.
I know, but it's like to help with construction of the tea store, or?
well, at this time,
Because
they
it's a vacant concrete lot.
Yeah.
so they have not done any work so far. So any money that you see worth, or any money that you've given them, they will put into developing either the landscaping, which you can kind of see, or the development of the facade, the building, the parking.
On that First Street, because they're not here, and Ryan pointed out something good, we really don't know what they're going to contribute funds to. Maybe if they come back the second go-around and they tell us
Yeah.
what they need the money for, we can do, we can have a better,
Well, your packet
Oh.
does include a breakdown of what they've requested, including the asphalt, utility pole removal, building construction. Now, of course, they're not asking for, their total project is well over the 75, so they're basically asking for 75 to assist with the overall project. but includes landscaping, parking lot striping,
And did we-
basically they're constructing the entire building and doing the site work and landscaping, which they're just asking for 75, out of their total project cost of 446,000. So, to do all of the building, parking lot, landscaping work is, 446,000. The maximum TIRZ grant is 75, so they're asking 75 towards that.
I guess in reading his statement here, my question is, because he gives the impression that this project is kind of on the cusp, like they may do it, they may not do it. Is that what everybody else reads with it? So I don't know, I'm not really sure.
I would tell you that this project has been in development, and it's been through many meetings with the city, the permits department, the fire department. It's on the loop.
Okay.
I would not tell you that it's not going to happen. It's just, it's going through the process. We've had countless meetings through
Okay.
the planning department with departments.
So let me ask this, John, since they're not here to speak for themselves, what happened if we do vote like, okay, let's split at 46,000 for all three applicants? Do you think this project right here would feel comfortable just receiving 46,000?
I have another thought.
Yeah, I think, and Brian can answer this better than I can, that's one of the questions I asked him, was to contact each applicant to ask them that question. Because in the past, we had a project that the board, they'd asked for 75, the board said, well, we can only give you 40, and they said, no.
Yeah.
We need the 75 to make it work, otherwise we don't want it. But I think he's spoken with these applicants, and so I'll let him
You want to speak to
tell you.
this, sir?
Yeah, it was just mentioned, we weren't here. We're what's my address? What's the address? We're on the West Concho.
West
Street.
Concho.
So, 5 West Concho, is that right?
Yeah.
So what we're gonna do is, it's the north side of Angry Cactus, and what we're gonna do is redo that whole facade, but I'm also gonna do all the interior as well. So we're gonna add about 3,000 square feet of kitchen space. It's actually gonna be part of our culinary program that we plan to, that's already in installation at Angry Cactus as we speak. We're also gonna add about 50 to 75 seats in that space for private parties and for overflow for the actual restaurant itself. So it's right on the heart of the corner of, downtown, and that's what we're doing with that project. So if you have any questions, we can
Question.
definitely address them.
If you were awarded funding today, when would you start?
So we're not able to start until we know that the funding is available, so that's kind of why we're
Let's say, I'm just saying, if it was available and it was approved today, when would you start?
as soon as possible, really.
When as soon as possible?
I'd have to defer that to our landlord.
60 days, 30 days?
We can ask him.
Well, and
But
just
yeah,
as a
yes, we're
reminder.
definitely, this has been in the works for about a year. We've kind of went through, about a year or so, John?
But you would definitely, let me ask you this, would you start within 90 days?
We've still got a few things to do, but pretty close to it, yes. I can't commit to that. You'd have to talk to Lee. He's here if you.
The reason I ask that, if you look at your investments, and I'm doing it in my head because I'm just guessing that we've got probably over $1 million invested in the South Zone. And if they're investing like I think they are, they're drawing up 4.6, 4.8, maybe up to 5 on 60, 90-day stuff. We've got enough money to fund the first 2. If you count the interest that we're going to make, you got about $150,000, close to it, real close. Maybe 3,000 or 4,000 short. You might be 72 or 73 for each one of these. I think we could fund the first 2, and this guy that's in the other one, he's not sure when he's going to start. He could come back and we see where we are this time next year.
Well, thank you, sir. Is there anyone here that wants to speak on 213 North Chadbourn while we're at this phase? Tell us what your plans are.
I'm Chuck Corfield. I'm the contractor who's been working on this building probably 3 years. They put in about $400,000 worth of work to the interior of it. And then during COVID, a drunk drove into the building. then we came up with this plan to revitalize the front of it and applying for a grant to try to help do it. Since they've been closed, or during COVID, they took a big hit on business like everybody else did. She wants to get back open so that she can get her mail and start selling pool tables and the vending machine stuff out of the front door. So that's kind of what the story is. We've been through the process once before and we didn't meet the deadline, but to answer the question when we start Monday morning. So we're just short a little bit of income to get that done right now, so and this is the owner's daughter here that would, if you want to ask her any questions pertaining to it, but.
Hi, I'm Amanda Blackerby. So we have a vending business, so I have pool tables and jukeboxes in and around bars and restaurants here in San Angelo. But the back of that building is our warehouse for storage of our pool tables and stuff, and then we have offices and a showroom, ideally. Normally, we have a showroom until this guy thought it'd be a great idea to play bumper cars downtown. And so since we have this huge hole in our building, it is, put a damper on any sales to home buyers that we can do. It's really hindered that side of the business. It's also limited the space that we have within the building for storage of equipment and storage of, material like felt and acoustics and, things that you need to run this business.
She can't even condition her space now because of its temporary.
It leaks. I was in there today and there's water stains all over the floor from all the rain we've had, which is a blessing. I'm so grateful for the rain, but I would appreciate it if it stayed outside of the building. So it's also been graffitied, so it's really fun now if you drive by it. There's really beautiful art across the plywood on the front. So I would greatly like to improve the outside of that building and improve our business for sure.
I'll ask you the same question. When would you start?
He
We would
said
start
Monday.
immediately.
He said Monday.
Monday morning.
Okay.
Well, and let me remind everyone, including the applicants, that after
Yeah,
you
it has to
approve
go to
whatever,
council.
it has to go to city council. It's not
I
final
understand.
until they
I
approve.
understand all that.
And then,
But I mean, once final
Sure.
approval is made, you start immediately.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I just want to make sure they understand they can't start Monday if you approve it today.
We're gonna be out there with sledgehammers on Monday. Y'all just come watch.
Yeah.
From
So that's her story, so.
Okay.
Well,
Any other
we're ready to
questions?
go, we're just,
Could you live with 70,000
in a heartbeat,
in a heartbeat?
yeah,
We would be
We
grateful
can
for
probably,
whatever y'all
probably come
want.
up with 70,000, couldn't count the interest.
yeah.
Any other questions?
I think what Mr. Brown is saying is we can work with what we have right now. We don't know
Yeah.
if we're gonna have interest or not. We're working with $138,000
Absolutely.
Yeah.
right
We get
now.
Okay.
Okay.
We didn't know if we get all or part or quarter of it.
Yeah.
Or we.
Okay.
Yeah, we
would be
definitely
grateful
wanna
For
hit-
any help that y'all wanna lend.
Okay.
And yeah, most definitely.
Thank you.
Very much.
And I will add that all three of these projects have received Design and Historic Review Commission approval.
Okay.
So they've already got their designs approved through that process.
And we already have the permit, so.
All right, thank you. Mr. Flugers, you want to say something about your
Lee
project?
Fluger, District 5 or whatever. I'll just answer the questions. Yeah, we can start on the facade of this property immediately. After due diligence, my Franco's took me 13 months to get a permit, so, but as soon as the bureaucracy can get finished, we can start on that. Tim didn't have very much excitement, but he's really excited about this, especially because of it's not a pie in the sky. He's got a restaurant there that's probably the best in downtown. And as Ken Gunner told me one time, that's the ugliest building in town. And we finished the ugliest building in town, which was where he is. And this is an addition to the ugliest building in town right now. But it's got great potential. It's got great bones. It's got beautiful historic meaning. And we're looking forward to getting it as part of the downtown atmosphere. Any other questions?
Assuming we can fund up to 70,000, can you settle for that?
Yep, 70, we can make it for
And
70.
we can make 70, with the interest, I guarantee you, we can make the interest up.
Whatever it takes,
Yeah,
we're going to get it finished, just how long is it going to take?
All I have to do is go to finance and look at their books, I bet you I can prove it up in about 15 minutes.
But we'd love we'd love to get this, I'd love to get this done downtown. It's been a long course. I bought that building in 1972, so it's been there a long time, and sure like to get it into operation and make another beautiful
There's a
corner
lot
of
of
San Jose,
stories in that
Texas.
old building.
A lot of stories.
All right, so our issue is we have the three projects. I'm kind of getting a sense that folks were inclined on number 2 and 3 and to wait on number 1. Is that what I was hearing?
That's how-
Is your preference just to split a third, and?
That's not mine. My preference is, personally, is to do the North Chevron and the Concho and split the money. And I think we'll get close to 70,000 for sure, maybe more.
Anyone else have any thoughts?
So y'all have concerns about that 325 West First is not going to go forward?
No, he just mentioned in here something about they've had some difficulties and had considerations of whether they should continue the project, but that's why I asked John and Brian, and he said that they've been in multiple meetings and working for it, so I just had that question. Is it going to go forward or not?
Yeah, I don't want to speculate too much, but my guess is that is a plea for.
Yeah, we need the money. That's kind of what yeah. So I would assume they had continued forward with it if we got this far, but I just wanted to make sure.
The project's $480,000.
Mm-hmm. Well, the one difference I see, arguing kind of with Mr. Brown's position, the one advantage I see to those, to the number 2 and 3, if you had to drop one, at least for now, then those are existing structures, and that there are existing businesses. I mean, I understand he's trying to fill a vacant lot, and we certainly want to encourage that too, but those are factors that I would take into consideration, but.
In the past, have there been similar type
Yeah,
ground up
in
funding?
In the past, sometimes the staff will come with recommendations depending upon the amount of money that we have. Sometimes, if we don't have enough money, we'll just take the money that's available and divide it up among the projects. And our new fiscal year starts over
October 1.
October 1, so we'll have new funding come available at that point. The other way is that we've done, which is sort of what Mr. Brown has suggested, which is to fund 2 of the projects and not fund one of them at this time.
No, but what I was asking is,
Oh, I'm sorry.
typically it's been facades and redoing existing structures.
okay, yeah.
Have there been
Yes, there have been some new builds. I will say that based on the criteria that we have, there is a priority or a preference for historic preservation, for preserving old buildings, revitalizing downtown. So the 2 projects that you're discussing are all existing buildings that need rehab versus sort of on the edge of downtown, kind of a new build in a more suburban type character. So if you were to ask staff, you're only going to fund 2 of these, which 2? I think it would be the 2 in the downtown in revitalizing existing buildings.
And just
This
for
would really finish parts of Concho, which needs finishing.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of money invested in Concho Street and some other buildings on Chadwick. And if we can do this building and the North Chadwick building, I just think it makes good sense right now.
And just to be clear, the 2 that we're talking about are items on the south are 2 and 3, 213 North Chadburn and number 5 West Constitution,
Right.
correct?
That's
I'm
correct.
trying to answer your question. Since I've been on the board, we've only funded one, and it was actually 2 parks from the ground up, and that was that there were the Huddle House and the
Okay.
Stockdale. That was ground up. We did fund for the Huddle House and for the truck stop.
Okay.
Everything else that we've done since I've been on the
Rehab.
board has been
It's existing structures.
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Tell us
We
your
approve
motion.
Concho and North Chadburn.
Okay.
And with the guarantee that we try to give them $70,000 based on the interest earned that we get. And if it's more, that would be decided later as the construction goes forward.
maybe we could clarify that motion is just to divide the funds available up to the
Provide
amount,
existing funding.
up to the amount of the grant
Yes.
available. Is there, that motion's been made, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Hunter. Is there any further discussion on that? Is there any public comment on that motion? Just to be clear, the motion is that we will fund 213 North Chadbourn and 5 West Concho, funds that are available in the south zone to be divided equally up to the amount of the grant.
With the caveat that if more interest made, that we give guarantee up to 70,000, if it occurs.
So you want to cap it at 70, even if with
No.
interest it
No,
comes to more than that? Or?
I think the way I'm
Right.
proposing my motion is that we'll split it evenly. Whatever up to, each of them could get 75,000 if you had enough interest, right?
Sure.
Up to
Yeah.
that,
Okay.
up to the maximum amount of the grant available.
Right.
Sure, okay.
So that's the motion.
Yeah.
It's been seconded by Ms. Hunter. I don't see any other public comment, any other questions or discussion from the board. All those call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Congratulations, and I wish you luck before the city council.
Good work.
All right, item number 6, discussion and possible action on recommending a change to the TIRZ boundaries. I think this was an item that Mr. Brown had requested to place on the agenda. And I think we've had some discussion about this before, but I don't know if the staff has any presentation they want to make first, and then we can open it up for discussion.
No, I've included the boundaries, and then I have a kind of a close-up of each, the north and south, really looking for your input. I will say that the city council has taken up the issue of boundaries a couple of times over the last 6 or 8 years, both expanding the TIRZ boundaries externally or moving the north-south line. To this point, they have chosen not to expand the boundaries and also not to move the dividing line between north and south. There was some recent discussions about that as well, but as of today, the city council has directed that their perspective is not to move the boundary at this point.
I have a question on this, on the whole issue. And the question, when we created the TIRZ, this was quite a while back, because I left council in 2010, and we had created the TIRZ by that point. And there was discussion originally about, do we have 1 TIRZ, do we have 2 TIRZ? And, part of the reason, as I recall, we wanted to have 1 TIRZ and reached all the way up to 29th Street was the development of Walmart and what was taking place there to be able to capture that. At that time, although some redevelopment of downtown had taken place, I don't know that it had, kicked off to the extent that it has. I guess if you're talking about boundaries, really the question may be, do you want to expand the boundaries? Do you want to change the boundaries between the north and south zone? Or would there be a possibility, would there be a benefit to having a second TIRZ, or taking part of this TIRZ and making it part of a second TIRZ and expanding one, particularly for the south zone, maybe? That's just a thought I had, because I know we can have as many TIRZ as we want, correct?
There is a limit based
Yeah.
on valuation of compared to the overall city valuation, but we're nowhere close to that.
It's not just like we're stuck with just having 1 TIRZ in
Correct.
this one spot. We can have additional TIRZ zones in additional areas of the city. We could have one for the north. You could have one for downtown and the areas immediately adjacent to downtown that would expand. So would seem to be, if we were going to, I agree we haven't gotten anywhere with the discussions that this board has had about moving boundaries or taking money or any of those things. So it would seem to me that might be something worth considering, but I'll just throw that out there. But that's another issue, but, and Mr. Brown, I know this is an issue that you wanted to discuss about.
I'm beating a dead horse, and I know it, but we saw we saw it today. I mean, we don't have any money in the South. And there is a concern that if we eliminate the boundaries, and city council's not gonna do it, I know that. But if we had one tier zone, we're just one city, and we're all in the same boat, guys. And our goal is to increase and enhance the tax assessed value. We can't do that if we continue to have issues like we had today where we can't fund. And I just think there ought to be one zone, and the city council needs to wake up. They won't do it, but we need to wake up.
Well, my thought, yeah.
And if we did ever expand it, I would want to put some restrictions on it. I don't want it used for street paving like some members of the council want to use it for. I don't want to use it for maintenance of the downtown area like some members of the council want to do. If we ever did have one zone, it'd be my suggestion, there would be restrictions, it'd only be to enhance the tax base, period.
Well, and my thought is, there are a lot of areas adjacent, we'll just talk about the south zone for now, because that's where we seem to have the issue. And the numbers may not work, John, but there's a lot of areas adjacent to downtown that have that I would think have a lot of historical connection to that downtown, particularly down South Chadburn, up Beauregard, across the river for a few blocks, over into Harris Avenue and some of those. So North Main Street, for example, which is still, even though it doesn't feel like a main street because it's not right in the middle of downtown, I mean, it's still an entrance to the city. I'm just wondering if that's a broader discussion needs to be had than just, do we move the boundaries? Do we not move the boundaries? We're not having any success with that. If there's a different way to get to the same issue where you have a bigger footprint for your tiers to be able to allow more income to come in through the development, and you also open up some of these dilapidated properties on these other streets, for redevelopment and additional funding that way. So that was my only thought. I agree. I don't think we're going to get anywhere with a discussion about moving boundaries or moving the boundary between the north and the south tier zone. I just don't think that's going to happen.
I can give you some background of the last time this was discussed, that very issue. The concerns with that are when you expand the boundary, that the tax increment starts on that day.
Yep.
And so if we were to expand the south or the whole TIRZ boundary, you would not get any revenue from those newly added properties immediately, and it would take years before you started to see substantial revenue. At the same time, you're opening up a larger area that's going to be asking for funds. So in the short term, you would probably make the problem worse more than better.
Well, and what you probably need is still like some development that's going to come in that you can actually do, like the 29th Street project, which I'm just thinking I think we've done a good job, or the owners, property owners and private developers have done a good job with downtown. It's growing. There's people down there. But it's just what the opportunity is. But I don't have a solution. That's just the only thing I could think of.
Yeah.
It seems like the north zone's gotten some traction this year, like.
It's picked up.
It's picked up.
Yeah, it has.
And I think the tax assessor's office is gonna help with the valuations on their own. And so it might be good to wait till next year to see what kind of south money comes in, because it looks like it's gonna be a lot greater than it was this past year.
Painfully.
Yeah. Well, I just
Correct.
think,
But it will be higher.
Well, you don't get an assessed value unless it's on the rolls January 1. So whatever we do right now is going to be another year behind that.
Gotcha.
It's the assessed value.
I mean, I do think it's something, though, there should be some sort of long-term strategy thinking about that in certain areas. And there may be other areas of town that you would want to have a tiers in. But anyway, that's just a thought. Anything?
Yeah, Mr. Pfluger.
Mr. Pfluger? Of course.
Lee Flew again. One of the big issues we have in downtown, we have plenty of money. We just use half of it for streets. We get nearly as much money out of TIRZ down in the south zone as we do the north zone.
You're preaching to the choir, Mr. Flew.
It's according to how you spend your money is the difference. And we've chosen to spend it on roads. But one thing that I would challenge the board to see if there's an opportunity for is to restructure the funding in such a way that we can get our high-rise buildings occupied. Maybe by saying a second floor is a second TIRZ opportunity. And the third floor is another TIRZ opportunity. If we can do that, maybe we can occupy some of these buildings. That's what we did down at the Cactus. Just every so often, I'd find somebody that'd want to spend enough money to renovate one of those floors, and I'd give them the floor, and they'd renovate it. So if that could happen to the old First National Bank building, or Snanesville National Bank building, and the Roosevelt, and some of the trust building downtown. But I think it's going to take some imagination whether the city council can
Well, if we
grasp that.
If we can come up with the money for it too.
Well, I think there'd be money. I really do think there'd be money for that. On a step-by-step basis. We only have about 10 years left to TIRZ. So, anyway, it's
Okay.
just an idea I had that I'd love y'all to think about.
You know, it'd be nice to rethink the whole funding criteria based on some of the things Lee said and some of the things you said, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I think, as Mr. Newland suggested, that's probably something we need to hunt down the road but just be thinking about it.
I would personally like to see the boundaries extended, but I know the council's not going to do that, the current leadership up there.
All right. Since there's no action to take on that, we'll move on. Discussion and direction on addressing accessibility for incentive projects.
Yeah, this is an item that was requested by a councilman, basically just wanting to, before we bring something forward, wanting to get your thoughts and direction. I think our thinking was to bring back an amendment to our incentive policy, looking at some options such as requiring a building that's getting funding to come into compliance with ADA accessibility, even if the ADA wouldn't necessarily require it based on what they're doing, just as an incentive, sort of like some projects we will provide additional funds if they do some extra above and beyond, like landscaping or those kinds of things. And I guess just wanted to kind of get your input on, is that something we would want to encourage and say we've got money to put towards that? Or would we want to go a little stricter than that and say basically, if you've got a non-compliant building or parking lot, part of your project shall be to bring those into compliance. And so before we went and wrote something into our policy to bring to you, just wanted to get your feedback on kind of your temperature on that.
What I've discovered is business owners here in San Angelo, they don't like to be told what to do. So we're going to have to be friendly about it first and then maybe ease our way into it, saying, okay, you need it. Yeah.
Well, and I'm certainly not an expert in that field, but I think the ADA rules and regulations depends on what you're doing to your project and what it's going to be used for and that sort of stuff. Right. So there's a lot of that.
And clearly, any project that would be triggered based on what they're doing, they're going to have to do it anyway, because those rules are in place. The question is, do we want to go above and beyond that? And I guess if you don't want to go as far as requiring it, I think what we could do is add it into our list of prioritization and projects.
If your project requires, accessibility.
Yeah, if you're...
You have the list of things that increases that percentage of who's going to get approved, but on the checklist, is there anything, are they doing anything to that?
Yep. I would be okay with that.
I mean, it doesn't mean it has to happen, but on the checklist, it's nice to know, where that
Sure.
property owner is or what they do.
Well, and if there's additional cost in their project based upon that. Is there any other discussion do you need a vote or anything
No, I
on
think
that?
that's some good direction, and we'll bring something back in the next few meetings.
Okay. Director's report. Item
Before we
8.
get it, can I ask John a question? Can you give us an update on any progress on discussions or meetings on 4th Street?
That's the director's report. That's good enough.
Yeah, and I actually don't have anything other than just the reminding you of the next meeting is August 22nd. If we have items to discuss at that meeting and if we can get enough of you all here. The short answer is we are still waiting on establishing ownership of that property, and our engineering and public works folks are basically on hold pending some direction. Basically, their answer is we're not going to pursue a project until we own the property. And so that's kind of where they are.
Hadn't had any meetings with TxDOT to discuss ownership?
Not at this point. I think, in fact, I
Come
think
forward,
Lee,
Mr. Pfluger.
Mr. Pfluger was planning to set up a meeting between himself and the city and TxDOT.
What I've done at this part, when I first started this, Alvin was somewhere overseas. Don't know where he had been for a while, but he's back now. I did contact everybody, SKG, the city's maps were kind of vague as to where they wanted which properties they wanted to identify that we need to know what the ownership was. But I have gathered all that information, have it in my office, and with your encouragement, I will get my secretary working on getting that meeting put together of
Hope springs eternal, Lee.
TxDOT and the rest of them, and see if we get enough information. But I've got the maps from SKG and the city maps and the plats from 1885 and all that kind of stuff. I've got all that
So a
in
meeting
my office now.
could be.
With your encouragement, I'll get that done. Thank you.
I actually do have one more update. You may recall that we approved a nonprofit project in the north a few meetings ago. You all had directed them to provide us some more information. It wasn't clear. You may have remembered, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but their drawings were a little bit cartoonish, and we needed more information. Where is the parking lot actually going to be? And more of a, not that they necessarily needed to hire an engineer or designer, but to draw out a little better. We're still waiting on more information from that applicant before we can take that to city council. So that has not gone to city council, but we just are waiting on them. If they haven't provided that information in some time period, we may bring that back to you for consideration of reconsidering or eliminating the project. If we don't like to keep projects out there hanging. I think they're still working towards that, and Brian's following up with them, but I just wanted to give you an update on that one as well.
Speaking of nonprofit, we had one on our agenda, but we didn't discuss it.
No, we didn't have enough people here. We don't have enough people here. You have to have a.
It takes a supermajority of the entire board, which means 7 affirmative votes to approve, and since we've only got 6 of you here, we couldn't consider it.
Not enough here to vote.
Lost a couple of members.
I think we have 2 vacancies, is that currently, and maybe 1 more coming.
Okay. All right. Any future agenda items anyone wants to have considered? Hearing none. The next scheduled meeting is August 22nd. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn in a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned.